Welcome to Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace. I'm your host, Chester Stanley, and in the studio we have here Troy Roberts. We'd like to welcome you, Troy, to the program.
Thank you. Yeah, good to be here.
Great to have you here, and as you're probably aware, this is a series where we have people sharing their journeys in relation to discovering faith. So we want to hear from you in relation to your story. So why don't you commence with your background, where do you come from, and yeah, just start the story for us.
Born in Darwin, right up the top of Australia, the land of crocodiles and barramundi. Grew up there, spent the first 19 years of my life there. So yeah, I guess when I was probably 4 years old, I think it was, Mum sent me off to Sunday school. Bit of a babysitting thing for her, I think. Just sort of, get rid of me for a couple of hours on Sunday morning, and that happened. And then they started sort of coming to church after a little bit. And so through my childhood, I spent a few years there going to Sunday school and sort of hearing a little bit about God, but knowing not much of what it was all about. And yeah, I guess it was probably 13, I was 12, 13, my auntie died, and that's when Mum sort of said, I guess she lost faith at that point and just said, right, well, we're done with church now. And I guess I was probably getting into my teenage years at that point and ready to really go and see what the world all had to offer. And I wasn't interested in church anyway. And, you know, all my mates were sort of starting to go out to parties and getting into everything in life. And I sort of followed along or led along or something like that. And yeah, just went and did what everyone else did. You know, and I think it was probably when I was about 16, 17, I got heavily involved with a girl, and I actually decided to have sex with her, and was that sort of decision actually set me up for a lot of issues in the future. But it was when I broke up with that girl and I was about 17 and a half, that I really had an empty feeling in my life, and I thought, man, you know, life is. This is not as good as it was meant to be. Okay. The sort of neon lights that the world said, yeah, this is great. You know, all the movies that I watched, all the friends that I had were doing all of it. You know, the parties and nightclubs and that, suddenly the smoke-filled nightclubs seemed a bit like, well, yeah, is this all there is to life kind of thing? And I remember sort of saying to myself, all right, okay, you know, I've finished year 12 now. I'm looking, I was just starting a double degree in law and commerce. And I was like, all right, I can do this and I can have a great life on my own and I can get another girlfriend and it'll all be sweet. But just before I do that, I better make sure there's no God. Just before I go on, right? So, you know, I was like, all right.
You wanted to check that out fairly carefully.
I wanted to check it out fairly carefully, and I guess I had a few empty feelings inside me going, hang on a minute, something doesn't make sense here. And so, yeah, I went out and I said, all right, God, where are you? Kind of thing.
Okay, just like that.
Yeah, just like that. All right, God, if you're real, I want to know who you are. And I guess I didn't really think that I'd get much of a response, but I remember I went along with my mum to a Sunday night Baptist church, and I was listening. I remember sitting up the back row, vividly remember this South African preacher spieling on about how this Jesus character and about how he was friend, and he seemed like he was sort of talked about him like a friend.
And that was, I remember you sharing that with me, and that was quite confronting, confusing for you.
It was confusing. I mean, I thought this guy was either off his tree, but the thing is, he had this degree in economics and he was quite an educated guy, and I thought to myself, hang on a minute, it doesn't make sense for such an educated guy to be spieling on about Jesus as if he actually knows the guy, you know? Okay. And that sort of shocked me a bit. And I sat in that church for about a year and I thought, all right, this is interesting. This is not kind of what I expected. I expected walk into a church, a couple of weeks, I'll be done. I'm out of here. All right, carry on with life. Right. But yeah,
but
that's
that went on for about a year. So you attended this church?
Yeah, on and off, just irregularly, a couple of times a month. At that stage, I moved down south to follow a girl to university. And that was to Newcastle. So I did my second year of university in Newcastle. And actually the first day I got there, I broke up with her And so my life was an absolute shambles at that point. And I'm like, why am I even here? You know, what's going on? And I guess that kind of directed me back to my search and my quest to find out about this God. And, you know, suddenly I was starting to have a little bit of a, maybe there's something to this, maybe. So I remember walking into another Baptist church, and everyone was over the age of 70, and that was the last time I went there, walked out of that place. And I was sitting down in the law university, and this girl was talking to me about, I'm going to church tomorrow, and it was Friday. And
is this the girl that you broke up with? Or?
No, this is another girl. There's a lot of girls in this story.
Okay, right. So this is at university.
This is at university, and there's this girl I've met, and she said, I'm going to church tomorrow, and it was Saturday. And I was like, that's interesting. You know, and I said, do you mind if I come along and check it out?
Okay.
And I went along, and I walked in, and there's about 50-odd young people there, and that shocked me. Because coming from Darwin, young people do not go to church.
Yes.
You know? It's like, it's not done.
Yes, exactly.
What do you mean you're 18, you're a uni student, you're coming to church? What do you mean you're studying medicine and you're going to church?
Yes.
What is this? All these young people, and, you know, they're doing this thing called Sabbath school, which I knew nothing about. Basically, they're opening the Bible, having a look at that. I had been to churches that didn't really open the Bible much.
Okay.
Suddenly they're reading the Bible, and I'm hearing them sing, and I'm hearing them talk to Jesus. And then I started to hear some of these other guys talk about Jesus like they were friends with him.
So these young people.
These young people.
Yes.
And this shocked me even more. Like, I'm like, what? They're talking like they've got this relationship going with Jesus, and what's that about? And
just totally new to you.
I couldn't believe it, because I guess, you know, I sort of regard myself, studying law, you regard yourself as being able to identify when someone's a bit...
Yes, for sure.
Taking you along in a bit of a story, but they didn't seem like that. It seemed genuine. You know, all the signs I got were this, like, hang on a minute, they really believe this. So, yeah, I ended up staying at that church, and you know, getting to know some of the guys as friends. Really, it was more or less a friendship started to grow there, and yeah,
Sorry, was the girl, was she part of the attraction?
She was part of the attraction at first, definitely.
Right.
She was part of the attraction at first, and that was all good. But deeper down, underneath it all, I was genuinely searching, and I was definitely saying, even before I'd met that girl, I remember a few tears in my eyes at college, just had a crazy little prayer to God and said, show me a church. If I'm going to get to know you, I need to find a church. And that sort of led into that. And but one thing I said to God is, I said, Lord, look, God, if you want me to change my lifestyle and change everything about me, if I'm meant to be good to be a part of this church, then I'm out straight away. And I was just...
Okay, Troy, we'll leave it right there, and we'll take a break, and we'll be very interested to hear the rest of Troy's fascinating journey. Welcome back to Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace, and we're with Troy. Troy, just before the break, you were sharing with us that you essentially, a very challenging prayer to God, and you said, essentially, God, look, I can't do it myself, I can't change myself, if I've got to do it, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So let's take up the story from there.
Yeah, I guess, look, I knew that I had issues in my life. I knew basic Christian values, and I knew I wasn't living a Christian life. Right. And I said to God, you know, if I have to change all this, then I'm not good enough from the word go, then let's just forget about this right now.
So what happened next after that?
Interestingly, you know, as I said, I was going to this church, and these guys accepted me just the way I was, which was a bit of a first, because I thought that church people had it all together, and they, you know, you had to be a certain sort of level to get in the club, if you know what I mean. And, you know, also sort of started at this point, I guess, to get to know and get to see a bit of a picture of this God. And I started to hear some things about him that didn't make sense with my worldly view of this God who looks down and says, you're not good enough, and come on, you've got to get better and sort yourself out. And yeah, as I sort of started to get to know God in those years, I noticed that he wasn't asking me necessarily to change all my ways straight away. It was more like he, for example, the relationships one, it was more like I'd sort of opened this container and done it my way, and it was almost like he dragged in this huge container that was his way and sort of gave me a look and just said, have a look, Troy.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, but I can't change what I've done. And he said, that's all right, just have a look at this. And I had a look and I started to realise, man, I started to find some answers in there. I started to meet some people that had waited till they got married, you know, had developed the friendship in their relationship first and built that foundation for marriage. And different things like this, a light finally came on and I thought, wow, you know, this is the way I want to do this.
Isn't that great?
And yeah, I guess God was patient with me in a whole lot of areas of life, and just until I realised, yeah, I want to do it that way. And interestingly, when I decided that I wanted to do it his way, it was tricky because I found it very hard to stop doing the things, at least in my own strength, my way. I found it very hard to put the lid back on those containers. And it wasn't until I got to a point where I said, God, I can't even do it. I can't even change.
That point of surrender.
Yep. Total. And I just said, God, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to show me your ways. You're going to have to do it all. And slowly he sort of changed me, you know, as I sort of started to get to know him better as this friend and this God who took me just the way I was.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
So this was, you were still at university during this time, or?
Yeah, I was still at university during this time. Partway through university, I took a year off and went to Africa. Worked with ADRA at a high school in Africa. Really just a bit of an expedition. I want to see the world, sort of. My mum's going, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, I want to do this. So I went with my girlfriend to Africa, spent the year there, and that was difficult because I experienced some racism and some very difficult things there that almost made me leave the church until I guess I realised, look, God isn't, I can't look to people always to find God.
Perfection.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's an imperfect church even.
Yes.
And that taught me a lot of things about what Christianity is really all about, what church people are really all about. Sometimes it's not quite all good, but came back from there and sort of kept growing, finished my law degree. And it was probably towards the end of my law degree where I finally got to a point where I said, excuse me, where I said to God, all right, I'm ready to give you every part of my life now.
Okay.
Before that, it was probably, have this part?
Yes.
No, I'm still taking this part.
Yes.
Career? No, that's still mine. I'm still driving this law thing. And it was fine. I got to the end of my law degree and I just said, all right, there you go. You take it all.
Okay.
And 2 weeks later, I decided to get baptised. Got baptised down on the Newcastle beach there, and
did you really?
Yeah, had about 100 of the church people there, and there's 4 of us that got baptised.
Good day, Troy.
Unbelievable, like just amazing, just an amazing experience between God and myself. Just this is between you and I, God. This is me saying, okay, you got the rest of my life. I want to do things your way and I want you to be a part of it. Let's go.
I mean, again, such a different picture from just a few years before that you probably never would have considered. That here you were publicly in a somewhat unusual sort of ritual that for people from the outside, and here you're being baptised.
Definitely. And so before that, I'd just gotten a job as a clerk for a very big corporate law firm in Sydney. And so it was interesting because when I got baptised, the day after I got baptised, I'd filled in an application for a volunteer sort of spot in America to work at a youth church, and that was a bit full on for me. I wasn't quite happy with the idea, but anyway, the day after I got baptised, I got a phone call. All right, you've been accepted to go to America for 12 months.
That was the day after you were baptised?
After I got baptised, I got that phone call, and I just thought, God, what are we doing? Where are you taking me? And off I was on the plane 3 weeks later, putting the law career on hold, and off to Walla Walla College in America to work with Carl Hafner and Troy Fitzgerald, and a church over there, working with an improv church actually, a sort of Friday night youth, very cafe feel, sort of 400 people. And
so was that a good year for you? Yeah,
that was probably, look, I was very scared. I hadn't grown up in the church. I didn't know all the stories. You know, some of these 6-year-old kids knew more about the Bible than I did. And I felt quite intimidated. I was like, all right, God, you're going to have to do it. But it really changed my life, and he showed me, you know what, you can do something for me. I can do something through you. And yeah, just working with young people, I just loved it. Working with high schoolers and college age, and just getting in there and just sort of one-on-ones and group stuff. And
as a very, very new Christian and as a very new Adventist.
Yeah, very, really thrown in the deep end and sort of, but I realised something there that, you know, it's not so much about me being good enough to do it or me knowing enough. It's about just letting God use the rawness of who I am and just living for Him and letting Him do it. And yeah, I remember doing my first talk in America. I'm just shaking at the knees, just going, oh, I can't do this. What's going on? But yeah, just sort of step by step, little step by little step, God sort of,
He's leading you along.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, there was a very significant point in that time in America, and we'll come to that right after the break, and Troy will go back to that. And I'm sure you'll want to hear the end of Troy's wonderful and inspiring journey to faith. Welcome back to Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace, and we're with Troy. Troy, you go to America, you're baptised one day, and the next day you've accepted a position as sort of almost a young pastor in a sense, you know, youth worker, and you go across to America. I remember you sharing with me that there was something that happened. Was it in church one day? Was it a skit that somebody did that really impacted your life in terms of its future directions?
Yeah. Yeah, what happened is we were actually touring with the improv team to different camp meetings, and we were at Soquel on the west coast, halfway up California. And I'm in a youth tent, and there's this play going on where Jesus is up the front and he's calling people to himself, and they're making excuses like, I play basketball, or I'm a businessman, I'm a mum with children, I don't have time for you, Jesus. I'm a drunk, I was abused. And he goes back through them and he calls them to himself again, and they're like, oh, I guess I can play basketball and, you know, follow you. Guess I can include you in my business. And they start coming up to Jesus, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, this is good, this is good. He gets to the drunk, and the drunk guy struggles, and he throws the bottle and runs up to Jesus. And he gets to the last guy, and the last guy stands up and he gets in Jesus' face and he says, where were you when I was abused, da-da-da? How can... And they have this massive argument, and the guy turns around and walks out of the tent, and Jesus is left standing there. And that just, like, I'm not very emotional in public, but that just floored me, and the tears ran down. I didn't really care, because I realised that with Jesus, you know, you either come or you go. And I had two brothers at that point who I loved dearly, my younger brothers, that were kind of on the way out the door. And that really wrecked me to think, whoa, this is their eternity, and this is them on the way out the door. So I went out the back of that tent, and I remember looking up at the stars and just saying, God, all right, because originally I just figured, well, this is a year of my life, I'll go back to my career. At that point I said, God, you've got the rest of it, let's do this. You've shown me I can do ministry a little bit, or you can do it through me, and let's go, you've got it all. Here we go, full-time in ministry, and I just want you to do everything you can to get those two brothers of mine and anyone else you can. And that was a real turning point for me. And I guess I spent another year there, and it was like, well, what do I do? And someone said, well, you go to Avondale to study theology. And that was good for me, because I hadn't grown up in the church and learned all the stories. So it was good to get some more Bible knowledge and really go a bit deeper and learn some of the... just learn some of the ways to think about God from different angles. And
yes, right. So you're studying theology at Avondale, and now you've entered. You've been appointed. You're an Adventist pastor and a minister working in the big city of Sydney. Troy. I mean, you do a law degree, a commerce degree, all sorts of possibilities there. And now you're in ministry. Good choice?
Absolutely.
No question?
Obviously, you know, you have these things and you think, what if?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, some of the experiences that I've had in ministry and that God's given me on this journey, wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yes.
Just the amazing experience just about being part of someone else's journey, from them coming from where I was, not having a clue about God, to this, wow, I can have this relationship with this Jesus. Even kids that have grown up in the church all their life, and suddenly the light goes on. I was, on a mission trip just a couple of months ago, and the light came on for these two girls that were there, and I just think, that's what it's about. This is what's going to mean something when I'm sitting down to the banquet table in heaven. So, yeah, I occasionally think, but I always come back to, I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. This is great.
I mean, that's a great testimony. And the challenges, the opportunities of ministry to impact people's lives for the better. And yeah, no, it's good to hear you say that.
I will say this though, Chester. As a Christian, when I was baptised, I thought life would be quite smooth, especially in terms of, my own issues, my own sin. I thought it would go smoother, and
It's all over.
It was all over. It was right. I was right now. It's a new year. You're a new creation, Troy. But I very quickly realised that that's not quite true, is it? We still battle with sin. We still live in a sinful world. I'm still struggling, and that's been a challenge in ministry as well, to realise that I haven't got it together any more than,
Yes.
God's shown me better ways to live, but I've still struggled with this sin thing. And I've still got to go to only Jesus for my salvation,
absolutely.
There's no other way. And I guess, some of the expectations have been hard at times, but I guess it reminds me again, wow, I'm so glad that my salvation's about what Jesus did and not about what I do, good or bad. So yeah, that's been a real journey of really learning that again.
For sure.
For me, yeah.
No, and that's very good to hear you be so honest about this walk. It is a journey. It is a journey. Just you have a real passion for overseas mission work. Would you mind sharing just a little bit? You've been involved in stuff in Cambodia. What have you done across there?
Yeah, I've really loved it. I guess since Africa. It's really sparked something in my mind for the third world. And when I was in America, we went back to Africa for a 3-week stint with doctors, dentists, and we did evangelism there, which really changed me. And recently, when I was at Avondale, actually, a group of us got together and said, right, what can we do? And we decided to go on a mission trip to Cambodia. And we found a little orphanage there that needed some help. And we went and built them a playground and just worked with their kids. They've got about 120 kids at the orphanage, and it just changes every single person that goes on the trip, including me. And since then, I've just been back last year with my church, and we built an orphan house to house 40 kids, and just a phenomenal experience. And the thing I love about it is that youth are extremely passionate, whether they're Christian or not. They're quite passionate about doing something that's going to make a difference, and really impact someone else's life. So, yeah, it's just been an amazing experience to see the lights come on for people as they do mission as well. And
that this is what life is really about. This is what produces satisfaction.
Yeah, and showing them that Christianity makes a difference. It doesn't just sit in the pews, and it's not going there for yourself and just to consume, but it's about, what can we do with our faith now?
Yes,
and where can we make a difference and turn heads? And
just wonderful stuff.
It's been phenomenal.
We've just got a brief amount of time left, Troy, in terms of other passions in ministry.
I think just seeing where God will take me on this journey. I'm just going to try and leave it open, every option open, and love working with youth and young people, and we'll just carry on. And
you're delighted with the choices you've made to be a Christian and to be a Seventh-day Adventist minister.
Absolutely. Yeah. God's brought me on an incredible journey, and I guess it's all to thank Him. And
is there somebody with you in this journey at this point in time? Not yet.
Not yet.
That's something to look forward to.
Something to look forward to in the future, and keep giving it to God, and He'll look after it.
Thank you very much. Well, Troy, it's been a real privilege to listen to your journey. And I'm sure you've enjoyed this journey of Troy's, and we look forward to seeing you back here with this program, Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace, on Hope Channel.